So Battlefront 2 had its yearly spike in player count, and if you guys didn't know, I am a pretty big Star Wars fan myself. I've been playing Battlefront games since I was born, literally. The first game came out in 2004, and that's literally the year I was born, so I've been playing since day one. And when I see this game have a big surge of players, I usually hop on it immediately. And when players return to this game, I feel like it's always a topic of discussion, but it's really been like a meme as of recently, where they're basically begging for a Battlefront 3. And I don't really foresee them making one, but it's more complicated than that. If you look back in history, the very first Battlefront game was released in 2004, like I just mentioned, and then the second game was released in 2005. And then for 10 years, we had just radio silence. That being said, later in life, obviously, they rebooted the game series by starting fresh. We got the Battlefield in 2015, and then Battlefront 2 in 2017. And then guess what? It's been radio silence since Battlefront 2. They fixed all the microtransactions and whatever else and fixed the game and made it a lot better, but after they got done updating it, it was just nothing. And it's been a long while since we've even thought of the idea of a Battlefront game releasing. We've had a lot of stuff release in between these games, like Jedi Survivor and Star Wars Outlaws, but just because they're a Star Wars game doesn't mean they're a Battlefront game. In the early 2000s, they got the exact same treatment. They got Force Unleashed and my personal favorite, the Xbox 360 game that was for the Kinect. And then we all of a sudden just got jump scared by Battlefront returning in 2015. So I think that history is probably going to repeat itself. I think that Battlefront 3 will really just be another 2 games. It'll be Battlefront 1 and 2, and then we may have to wait another 4 to 5 years before we get it, or even get one at all. Now, if it isn't already in development, I feel like it may be 10 years before we ever get to see it, because they better put a lot of elbow grease into this game if they're going to make it, because games take time and money, and we all lack that patience, but it's going to take a lot of time for them to make a better game than what they've already made. I would like to say if they do it right, they could possibly make the best Star Wars game to ever exist. If you look at all the shit they have to build from it, it's insane. Disney has made so many TV shows in the recent years for them to play with, and there's also 4 games from them to pull from and use as reference to either make a really good final game or 2 more games. So I feel like the ball is on the tee, they just have to swing. There's characters like the Mandalorian that they can pull from, Ezra Bridger, Kanan, Sabine, Ahsoka from their TV show. You have things like Cal Kestis and so many more I'm probably forgetting that could be such an addition to these games. Can you imagine how fun it would be to make somebody crash out when you play as Ezra and you cook their shit with a lightsaber pistol combo? The Andor show just got released. They could pull stuff from that. The Jedi Survivor games exist. Rebels exist. All the Inquisitors from Rebels and Jedi Survivor could be just thrown into the game. There's at least 4 really cool sits for heroes and villains right there. And then you move into the older Battlefront games where you had characters like Mace Windu and Asajj Ventress, that blue Ahsoka chick and Ki-Adi-Mundi, and there's so much for them to work with, where if they didn't reboot and remake the Battlefront game altogether, it would probably just be a glorified DLC. And not that a glorified DLC would be so bad, but there's just too much to work with that I feel like they just need to reboot the entire game altogether like they've done for years and years. Because all the stuff that is released up until this point have pretty much been mastered. They have all the eras, like the Clone Wars era, the Empire era, and the new butt-shit era. And there's really nothing to build off of from here. Because what are they going to do, make a damn Rey-focused game? And obviously, there's been so many advancements and engines and everything they could build the game with since 2015 that the game's going to look completely different and be built off a different engine anyway. So that's just more of a reason to rebuild it and not call it Battlefront 3. Battlefront 1 and 2 were released around the same time, pretty much on the same engine, and they look relatively the same, just some different camera to me. And obviously better graphics on the 2017 one, but there's not that big of a difference. If they released the game as Battlefront 3, it would be a complete fucking change from Battlefront 2 to Battlefront 3. There wouldn't be just that little slight change like there was between Battlefront 1 and 2. So why not just reboot it from the ground up and have either one really good Battlefront game that's just called Battlefront, or make Battlefront 1, have it a lesser, kind of shittier game to get you introduced into this, and then have Battlefront 2 that always brings the heavy guns, that there's a lot more content, a lot better. It's always been that. Now, I do think that they can pull more from the Empire era and the Clone Wars era that they kind of lacked in the latest games, but I still think it was an amazing experience. So other than changing the graphics and building it up from a different engine, they're probably not going to change it too much more. Obviously, the HUD will change and stuff like that, but I'm saying like the base model of what you're playing as can't really change much. They can just improve what you can do right now and keep it similar, but it's going to be pretty much the same on some new graphics. And that's why I see, after so long, I feel like they should just reboot the games completely. And again, that gives them the freedom to pull things from the older games and these games that are around 2015 and 2017. You could pull more maps from the older games because they always hit so much differently. I feel like they rip more directly from movies like Mustafar and Camino that stand out the most to me. I feel like they're way more movie accurate than what's in Battlefront 2. I don't even think Mustafar is in Battlefront 2, so let me go ahead and correct myself a little bit there. But I feel like all the maps are kind of scaled to fit the 64 players on the map better. If you remember storming Normandy on the old Camino when you were a kid, it was just way crazier and way more fun than the current one that's in Battlefront 2. If you remember fighting with lightsabers on Mustafar, it was just different. It was just such an experience. When you played on that map as Obi-Wan and Anakin and you 1v1'd your friend, whether it be on split screen or online or however you did it, it's just something that they did not replicate in Battlefront 2 in the current day and age. If they wanted to build it from the ground up, they could replicate these things into the new game if they pursued. I feel like they worried too much about making the maps roomy for the 64 players instead of adding the small maps anyway from the older games and just letting people enjoy the chaos. Instead of reworking these maps and making them different, still make them as accurate as you can to the movies and just make them like the Operation Metro of Battlefield, but have it in the Star Wars font. Another map that stands out is, you know, General Grievous, where he actually like was hiding, I guess. Remember how cool that map was in Battlefront 2, and now that just doesn't exist? It just doesn't. The cool animals you could ride too when you're in these certain areas, like all the vehicles, all the cool shit that you used to get with the Camino, like the big tank thing that could drive through the water. When you were on that map I was mentioning about General Grievous, you got that big ass bird that Obi-Wan was on, or whatever it was, lizard bird thing. It's just such cool things that they could have added that they just missed the beat on because they were too worried about remaking these maps and making them bigger and better for the 64 player number. I love Operation Metro on Battlefield just as much as the next guy. So again, imagining a corridor lit up by blaster bolts is just a dream come true if it was 64 players on Mustafar. And the closest thing I've got to experience what that would actually be like is in the VR. The VR Battlefront that's on contractors literally does exactly that, where it throws a high number of people on that small map, and it's so fun. It's crazy that a mod for a game did a better job than the devs of the actual licensed Battlefront game did. But I do think they can make a game out of what they have. If they take elements from all these new shows, if they take elements from all the old games that we liked, even the newer games that we liked, because everyone loves Battlefront 2, if they would pull all this together, put it in a bowl, mix it with the right spices, and make a game out of it, we wouldn't even need a Battlefront 2. We could just have one Battlefront, have it named Battlefront, and it be the final Battlefront for at least 10 to 20 years until there's just some insane graphical improvements that we just need to remake it with. And hell, you could remaster it at that point. Honestly, I think that's all I have to say. Let me know down in the comments below if you think they'll reboot the franchise or if they'll just make a third installment, and how you hope it will go if they do make a third or if they reboot the franchise altogether. What do you think they could add, and when you would expect it? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of all over the place, but again, I just kind of wanted to talk about this because I have this weird opinion and I wanted to share it. So let me know what you guys think down below, and yeah, that's it.